Survival isn't about playing by the rules, it's about staying alive. When everything breaks down, no one's coming to enforce the law or save you. Now let's dive right into the heart of the matter. We're in a world where, unfortunately, some of the most effective tools for survival are not only frowned upon, but they're outright banned or restricted. We're not talking about items that are inherently dangerous or harmful. Rather, we're discussing tools that could be the difference between life and death in a survival situation. But why are these tools illegal in the first place? Well, the answer is simple: control. Governments, by nature, are not fans of anything they can't control, especially if it grants individuals too much independence. And that's where survival gear comes into play. From weapons to communication equipment, these tools are often seen as threats to the established order. But when the chips are down and societal structures crumble, these might be the very tools that save your life. Let's take a moment and consider the reality of a survival situation. We're not talking about a weekend camping trip or a short power outage. We're talking about real, long-term survival scenarios. In those situations, the rule of law as we know it today might not exist. And when that happens, the gear you weren't supposed to have might be the only thing standing between you and a grim fate. So, as we dive into this controversial but critical topic, remember this: survival is not about adhering to laws that may not apply when civilization collapses. It's about being prepared, being resourceful, and above all, staying alive, and sometimes that might mean crossing lines you never thought you would. When collapse hits, your survival might depend on the gear you weren't supposed to have. So, with an open mind and a focus on survival, let's explore the world of controversial but critical gear. Let's delve into the nitty-gritty of the survival items that are restricted or outlawed. First on our list is body armor. Yes, you heard it right. In some states, owning bulletproof vests is restricted, even though they serve a purely defensive purpose. In a world where law enforcement may be absent or overwhelmed, protecting your body becomes an absolute necessity. Next up, we have high-capacity magazines and certain firearms. Arbitrary limits on magazine size can leave you at a disadvantage when faced with hostile situations. What's considered illegal in peacetime could become a vital lifeline when the rule of law collapses and survival is the only game in town. Now let's talk about off-grid communication devices. Long-range radios, encrypted communication gear, and some types of signal jammers are restricted. But think about it. When the grid goes dark, being able to send and receive secure signals could be the difference between life and death. Moving on, we touch upon homemade fuel and DIY power generation. Making your own fuel, batteries, or generators may break environmental laws, but when the lights go out, these DIY solutions might be the only thing keeping your survival setup running. Then we have lockpicking sets and entry tools. Often branded as burglary tools, these items transform into urban survival essentials in an emergency. Picture this: someone is trapped in a building or you're scavenging an abandoned structure for supplies. Access becomes everything. You might find this one hard to believe, but yes, water collection systems are on this list. In some jurisdictions, collecting rainwater is actually illegal. But when it comes to survival, water is non-negotiable. Knowing how to collect it smartly and quietly could be the key to outlasting a crisis. Last but not least, we have concealed carry, or non-compliant knives and weapons. State and local laws vary wildly on blade length, concealed carry, and defensive tools like brass knuckles or batons. But let's be real. When society falls apart, being caught without protection becomes far more dangerous than breaking a rulebook. It's important to note that this list is not an endorsement to break the law. Rather, it's a reflection of the sometimes harsh realities of survival situations, where the usual rules may not apply. Understanding the potential risks and rewards of these items can help you make informed decisions about your own survival strategy. In a perfect world, we wouldn't have to worry about any of this. But survival isn't about playing by the rules, it's about staying alive. When everything breaks down, no one's coming to enforce the law or save you. The question is, will you have what you need when it matters most? Now that we've discussed the gear, let's talk about when it's worth the risk and how to store these items responsibly. In the world of survival, there's a delicate balance between what's legal and what's necessary. And while we don't advocate for breaking the law, it's essential to understand that in a survival situation, the rules can change. But before you even consider acquiring any of these restricted items, let's weigh the real risk against the real reward. First off, the risks. Owning illegal gear can come with hefty fines, legal battles, and even jail time. And while these consequences may seem harsh, governments have their reasons, however debatable they may be. So if you're considering possessing any of these items, it's crucial to understand your local laws and the potential consequences thoroughly. Now, how do you mitigate these risks? Discretion is key. If you do decide to own these items, store them safely, securely, and out of sight. It's not just about avoiding legal complications, it's also about keeping these items out of the wrong hands. Remember, in an emergency, your gear could be just as attractive to desperate people as it is to you. And then there's the reward. In a survival situation, owning these items could mean the difference between life and death. A high-capacity magazine could fend off a larger group of attackers. A long-range radio could get you vital information when all other communication is down. A lock-picking set could provide access to shelter or resources when all else fails. But let's be clear. The real reward isn't in owning these items. It's in the potential advantage they offer when things go south. It's about being prepared for the worst-case scenario, even if it means bending the rules a bit. However, it's not just about owning the gear. It's about knowing how to use it effectively and responsibly. Because even the most potent survival tool is useless or even dangerous in the hands of someone who doesn't know how to use it. So if you choose to own these items, invest time in learning how to use them properly. In the end, only you can decide if the risk is worth the reward. It's a personal choice, based on your assessment of the situation, your abilities, and your willingness to face the possible consequences. But remember, when society breaks down and it's every man for himself, the rules that once governed our lives may no longer apply. The question is, will you be ready? Will you have the tools you need to survive, even if they're frowned upon in times of peace? It's a tough question, one that requires serious thought and consideration. Know the line and know when to cross it. Because when it comes to survival, it's not about what's legal, it's about what's necessary. If the risk is too high for you, there are legal alternatives that can serve the same purpose. And here's the thing, survival isn't about having the exact gear, it's about having the right mindset and being resourceful. So let's talk about body armor. While owning bulletproof vests can be restricted, there are other ways to protect your body. For instance, consider investing in reinforced clothing. These are made from high-strength fibers and can offer some level of protection. When it comes to high-capacity magazines and certain firearms, consider learning more about alternative defense methods. Martial arts, for example, can be a powerful tool when used correctly. And don't forget about slingshots or crossbows, both of which are typically unrestricted. As for off-grid communication devices, ham radios are a legal and effective way to communicate over long distances. You may need a license to operate one, but the process is relatively straightforward. Homemade fuel and DIY power generation may be tricky territory, but solar power is a clean and legal alternative. Solar panels can power your base camp and charge your devices, all while maintaining a low profile. Lock-picking sets may be frowned upon, but a simple set of bolt cutters can be just as effective in an emergency. They're completely legal to own and can be a lifesaver when access is crucial. Water collection systems, specifically rainwater collection, can be a legal gray area. However, there are still ways to ensure you have a steady water supply. Consider a well, for example, or learn about natural sources of water like springs and aquifers. And finally, when it comes to concealed carry or non-compliant weapons, there are plenty of legal alternatives. Pepper spray, for instance, is a non-lethal way to defend yourself and is legal in most jurisdictions. Remember, these alternatives are not about skirting the law. It's about being prepared and ensuring your survival while staying within legal boundaries. It's always important to understand and respect the laws in your area. But also remember this, when the grid goes down, the rules change. In a survival scenario, it's about being resourceful, adaptable, and resilient. It's about having the knowledge and skills to use what's available to you, whether that's a high-tech piece of gear or a simple rock. So whether you choose to stock up on the controversial gear we've discussed, or you prefer to stick with the legal alternatives, the most important thing is to stay prepared. Think creatively, always have a plan B, and never underestimate the power of a well-equipped mind. And remember, survival isn't about the gear you have, it's about the knowledge and skills you possess. The gear is just a tool, a means to an end, but your mind, your will to survive, that's the real key. These tools offer similar utility without attracting legal heat until the grid goes down. Survival isn't about playing by the rules, it's about staying alive. We've delved into the controversial sphere of survival gear that's often regulated, restricted, or outright banned. Remember, these items, body armor, high-capacity magazines, off-grid communication devices, DIY power generation, lock-picking sets, water collection systems, and concealed carry weapons, can be the difference between life and death when the chips are down. We've also talked about the real risk versus the reward of possessing such gear, and the importance of knowing when to cross the line. And let's not forget about the legal alternatives that offer similar utility without attracting legal heat. So, it's time to ask yourself, are you prepared to defy the odds when everything breaks down? Will you have what you need when it matters most? Survival isn't about obeying laws, it's about living to see another day. Comment below, what gear do you think should be legal for preppers to own? Hit like, subscribe, and stay sharp, because in the end, survival is on you.